Welcome to the MEF2C cast, the podcast advocating for the MEF2C haploinsufficiency community by broadcasting the voices within. I'm Eli.
And I'm Haley. We are parents to a boy with MCHS and autism, sharing our journey with you throughout conversations grounded in learning, support, and community.
This is Advocacy Amplified. Do you have questions, comments, or a story to share? Want to be a guest on the show? Connect with the MEF2Ccast on Facebook, mef2ccast.com, or email us at mef2cast@gmail.com.
If you enjoy the show, please support us by subscribing to the show on Apple and Spotify, leaving us a review, and following us on social media. You can also buy MEF2Ccast merch at our Shopify store, linked in the podcast description. The MEF2Ccast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Views expressed are those of the hosts and guests and not necessarily of the podcast or its sponsors. This is not medical advice. Consult a healthcare professional for medical concerns. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the MEF2Ccast. It's going to be a little bit different episode today. I'm going to kind of take the lead more than Eli, but he's still here to chat with everybody. We're here with Caroline Donnelly to talk about her daughter, Jessica. So, Caroline, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your family, as much or as little as you like?
Yeah. My name's Caroline. I'm mum to Jess, who's 25, and to her brother Sam, who is 27. And I'm divorced from their dad. We were divorced when Jess was 7. A lot of stress on the family. We didn't get a diagnosis for Jess until she was 18. So we thought initially when she was born that everything was fine. But she got sepsis when she was 2 weeks old and was in intensive care for 2 weeks. And then I noticed her development was slow, and she then got bacterial meningitis at 5 months old, and she was quite significantly delayed in her development at that point. But I would say the medical professionals didn't really listen and just said, well, she's had a tough time, so we'll just give her a break. But by the time we got to 9 months, she was still not sitting up. She still couldn't use her hands. And so we got referred to a child development centre. And we were told she was probably more like a 3-month-old than a 9-month-old. But I actually thought, not that bad. She's only 6 months behind. That's not too bad. We can catch that up. So her dad was full-time working. I was full-time working, but had to reduce my hours. I worked as an orthoptist for our National Health Service, but Jessica's then started a programme of physiotherapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, home teaching. So there was a lot of input for Jess, and I couldn't work full time. So that was sort of how our sort of life with Jessica continued then. I became a bit obsessed by doing all her physio and all her therapy. Dad was less involved because he was out at work. And as her brother got older and wanted to do things, and Jess wasn't able to do those things, it sort of split the family a little bit in that her brother would go off with her dad to do stuff, and I would be doing stuff with Jess. And it was just a big toll on us, really. Jess's development just was incredibly slow, really, really slow. We got referred to a neurologist, and we had scans, we had tests, and everything came back negative. They couldn't find what was wrong with her. I became completely obsessed with finding a diagnosis for her until one day we went to see the neurologist, and she told us that 2/3 of her patients didn't have a diagnosis. And so I just thought, okay, shelve that as much as I could and focus on being mentally and physically fit, because I knew she was going to need a lot of care. So that's what I did. And I started running, and I've run a few marathons since, but the focus was always very much on Jessica. She took up an incredible amount of my time. Because we didn't have a diagnosis, I was convinced all the time that she would catch up. And when I look back now, I was completely in denial about the level of her disability. I had no idea where we were heading, really. So we were then referred to a geneticist and in Manchester, which is in the north of England, and we had numerous tests there, and the geneticist was absolutely lovely. I would have asked her to move in with us, but I don't think she'd have appreciated it. But she was very keen. She said, I'm convinced that Jessica has a chromosome anomaly that has been there from birth, which in some ways made me feel a bit better because I'd sort of battered myself really, thinking that I had done something, that maybe was I a bit blasé in my second pregnancy? Was it while I was breastfeeding? Lots of different, like, it must be my fault why she's like this. But we couldn't find a reason why she was like she was. And our appointments were initially every 3 months, then became every 6 months, then 12 months, then 2 years, 5 years, and time went on. And I just thought, we'll never ever find a diagnosis. That's it. She had Jessica syndrome, and that was that. And so she then went into, probably when she was around the age of 9, she went into a national research study for children who didn't have a diagnosis. And they were trying their research sort of testing to find a diagnosis. We were tested for Angelman syndrome, for Rett syndrome, for, along those lines. And the geneticists kept saying, I'm convinced there is a syndrome. And she said, I will make it my life's work to find out what it is. So we went into this research and really didn't really hear anything else from them. And I'd almost forgotten about it. And when she was 18, we got a letter through the post just saying, we found a reason why Jess is the way she is. And it's called MEF2C, and a bit of an explanation. And that was that. And I think probably the first time in my life, I felt like I was having a panic attack. I could not believe we had a diagnosis. I just couldn't believe it. And I felt a sense of relief, fear. I didn't, I could remember standing in the kitchen and just not knowing what to do. Should I call somebody? Not call someone? What should I do? It was just dreadful. So it was good to get that diagnosis because, of course, I found the Facebook group. So that was amazing, really, that there were people who had a child like Jess who had gone through things like we had, because he very much felt very isolated. By the time Jess was 18, me and their dad had split up when she was 7, so I had been on my own a long time with her. And I always said her brother, who was 2 years older, was amazing with her. Absolutely amazing. I would say it all the time. He is so good. He never demands my time, because Jess did, not that she actually demanded it, she just did need my time. And all his friends were great. But I think I didn't realise the impact it had on him, having a sister who was so profoundly disabled, living with her. And it wasn't until he was probably about 20 that he just said, Jess was 18, we'd had a very bad summer with her, and he just said, this is just shit, Mum. I don't like living with Jessica. I don't have any time. The house smells like shit all the time. It didn't, but I got where he was coming from because Jess is incontinent. And he just broke down, and it had massively impacted on him. And I think because I'd protected him in terms of, I never asked him to look after her, asked him to really get that involved with anything. He might have gone and ran for a packet of wipes or something, but that was about it. But it massively impacted on him. He was like an only child without my attention because he didn't have another sibling. He's very good at spending time by himself. My memories of just physios coming to the house and me having to say, just you sit there because this lady's come to see Jess. You sit there because this lady's come to see Jess. Everyone who came to the house came to see Jess, and not him. And it did impact on him massively, but she needed my help all the time. He'd be talking to me and I could hear Jess vocalising. I said, just a minute, let me just check on Jess. I'd run off, check on her, come back, and he'd say, doesn't matter. And so we made the really difficult decision when she had to change school at 11 for her to go to a residential school. It wasn't that far away, and she would go on a Monday morning and she would come back Monday evening. And at that time, I would say that is one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I needed to do it for me, and I needed to do it for Sam. And it was a great school for Jess. She had to change school, so we had to find a new school for her. And it was a great school.
How old was she when you started the residential school? I'm sorry.
11.
Okay, gotcha.
Which I know seems really young. She had had respite before that. She'd go for like one night at just a local respite place, and that was good. She started that probably around about 8, 9. She'd just go for an evening, or she'd go at like for tea and stay overnight and stay for the next day, and then I'd pick her up. So it's like a 24-hour thing. But that allowed me to do things with Sam. So we could go to the cinema, and if we wanted to stay out for tea, we could stay out for tea. And we didn't have to worry about where are the toilets? Have we got all the pads with us? Have we got wipes with us? Have we got snacks and spare clothes? And because with Jess, it was hard to be spontaneous and harder as she got older. Toileting became a massive big issue. Where do you change somebody who is over 5 foot, who is
Yeah.
in pants? And I could go out with just a little bag and I had my phone and my car keys in it rather than carrying a huge rucksack with me. And I always say that I'm going to write a book and it's going to be called My Little Bag. Um, just because it felt liberating to do that. So at 11, when she went to the school, I think Jessica's level of understanding sometimes is an advantage because I don't think, or certainly then, I don't think she ever missed me. As long as people were meeting her needs, then she was content and she was happy, which is very, very hard as a parent to be able to. Um,
Now, did you notice you say that she didn't miss you? Did she not get excited, like, when you came to pick her up?
when I left, I think probably whilst she was at that school, probably around the age of 12, they were having like a little musical sort of afternoon that parents were invited to, and I went. And for the first time ever, I think she smiled when she saw me. And her behaviour was the same when I was there or when I was not there. So as hard as it was for me, it was better because I didn't think she missed me because she didn't show it in her behaviour or her sleep or her eating. There was nothing that indicated that. So she stayed there then until she was 19, and it was an amazing school and they became like family, and she did great there. But her development has always been very, very slow. Her use of her hands is very limited. I saw videos of your son and he's pointing and Jessica
Mhm.
still can't point. So she's very limited on that. So at 19, we had to make the decision then, what do we do next? And so there was a college that she could go to, which really was just a very similar setup but it was for 19 to 25. And so we managed to get a place there. It was a huge fight to get there, but we got there. And then COVID hit, and that was horrific because I couldn't go and see her. And so we went 26 weeks before we saw her. And so every day I just thought it's one day closer to seeing her. And we FaceTimed, but she doesn't understand FaceTime. And I didn't FaceTime initially because I just thought my voice might upset her. But it started to go on for so long, I thought, I need to see her. I need to see her moving and sort of playing, and rather than just photos that they were sending. And so every single night I would FaceTime and I just asked those. Has she slept? Has she eaten? Has she had a bowel movement? The questions that are important.
Yeah.
And we did that then for sort of 20 odd weeks. And then every time they had a case of COVID at the college, they would sort of impose their own lockdown. So we had Christmas, seeing her behind a screen. We had her 21st, seeing her behind a screen. Um, it was a really, really horrible time, but I'm not sure that it impacted Jess in that same way, really, in the same that she was getting her needs met. I'm not saying that if I'd have been there, it would have added a bit more sort of happiness for her,
Yeah.
but she wasn't unhappy. And that's
Yeah.
what kept me going, really.
That's important for sure.
The school that she was at prior to going to the college at 19, the head teacher, who was absolutely lovely, had brother who had autism, and he lived at home with her parents. When he was sort of mid-40s, they lost both parents very suddenly within 6 months of each other. And so they had to find a new home for him and new carers. So he lost both his parents, he lost the home that he'd lived in all his life, and he had to go living somewhere else with new routines, with new carers. And the head said to me, don't let Jess be in that position. And that just stuck with me. And so at the point when she was leaving college, she was 22. And I thought the options were limited for us. But she either came back home, and by the time I would have to have given up work, or she went into what we have in England is supported living. So they're in a home and just a normal, regular house within sort of the regular communities, and they have carers. And so her needs are assessed as to what level of care that she needs. So they assessed that she needed 24/7 care. My mind was in a place where I thought, I'm fit and well. I can influence this as much as I want to and sort of shape it to what I think will be the best life for Jessica, that I can implement the best activities for her that she will do during the day. And I would rather do that and me suffer and be upset by her not being with me, but being able to influence it rather than me not being here and that happening without my influence. And so that's what we did. Her dad was still very much involved as well. And so we set to sort of organising that. And probably that was, in Jessica's life, there's been many fights and many struggles. I would say setting that up was probably the hardest thing that we have done. But when people said to me, well, what will Jessica do when she leaves college? I always, in my head, I was thinking, I've absolutely no idea. But to them, I would say, she will have the best life that she can have. And I will fill her days with the things that make her happy. And that is what we have done. And so she is in a little bungalow and I moved to be closer to her. So I'm only 10 minutes away from her. I can now pop round to Jessica's house and sit and watch TV with her as her mum. I'm not exhausted and I can just enjoy her pure pleasure of the simple things that she enjoys in life rather than me thinking I'll sit next to her and just quickly get 40 winks because I'm so exhausted. She goes out every single day. The carers are amazing and she goes out every single day. She goes bowling, she goes trampolining, she goes sensory swimming, she goes triking. She goes to dance class. She goes to music groups. I struggle to see her because she is so busy. But the things that I would say that were really important to me when we were doing it is that I made sure that they understood. So they had a care plan and a support plan that was created of what Jessica's needs were, what her routines were, what she liked. And that was a picture of Jess as she was then at 23. But I wanted them to know her as a whole person. And so I made sure that I would go and I would and talk to the carers about what she was like as a baby, what she was like as a child, what she was like as a teenager, and what she'd been through and how she'd progressed and how she'd developed so that she wasn't just here and now, but she was a complete person who's gone through so much in her life and has tolerated so much and has done so well. And even now, she is progressing still. And I've developed a good relationship, I would think, with the carers. They feel like family to me because they are looking after my most precious thing to me in my life. And so I wanted them to be friends with me. We share Jessica's joys and her achievements. And they say to me, I can't wait to see what she does when she's 40 because she's doing so well now. So we joke that she's going to cook Christmas dinner for us all when she's 40. But they set goals for her, and she just does, like, since she's been there, she knows where she loves to eat little pieces of cheese. So there has the cheese in the fridge, and she can go to the fridge and she can open the fridge door and she just taps on the shelf when she wants some cheese, which is like huge.
That's
It's
amazing.
huge.
Yeah.
She knows where her treats are in the kitchen, in the cupboard, and she will go and open the treat cupboard and she taps on that. They make, at the end of her meal, they get her spoon that they've fed her with and they give it to her and she carries it to the sink and puts it into the bowl.
That is
She
such a huge
puts
win.
It's amazing, honestly.
Mhm.
I'm sat there, I'm just like, wow. And they are so excited themselves. She's a really poor drinker, Jess, in that it's very sensory for her. So if she feels uncomfortable, she won't drink. And so when she first started at supported living, it was a big issue. And they were having to syringe water into her mouth because she wouldn't drink. So when she does drink, they would send me a message and say, Jessica's had a drink. And I love the fact that they're so excited as I am that Jessica's had a drink. Um, so I think we had a really tough time when she first started. getting the carers right, getting them to understand her routines. Jess is non-verbal. She doesn't have any speech at all. And her communication is very, very limited in that she doesn't really understand pictures. So when she wants things, they have her shoe rack by the front door and her coats by the front door so that when she wants to go out, she will go and get her shoes. If she wants the TV, she'll hand them the remote control. Um, we've adapted some music for her so that she has big buttons and she can operate that herself, so she can do that. And she will now lead the staff somewhere that she wants to go. She likes playing the keyboard, so she takes them to the keyboard. So she's developed her own communication, but staff need to know her quite well. And I worried so much about her. I mean, you will know when your child is nonverbal, every tiny little movement of their face, of their posture, and as soon as I walk in, I know she doesn't feel well. I can see from her face, I can see from her posture she's not feeling well. And it takes time for them to develop that. But I've spent a lot of time with them trying to get them to understand Jess. And when she does this, it means this. When she does that, it means that. And I've said to them, you can ask me any question and you can ask it at any time of day, that if you want to know something. And they would say an early doors, like, we're not sure whether she's enjoying this activity. Will you come with us and just see whether you can see from her sort of like vocalization, from her facial expression, is she enjoying it? And slowly we built up that sort of their understanding. We had a good rapport, and Jess is a little monkey with them now.
The these residential programs, are these all like government run things or are these private things or
No, yeah, it is government,
gotcha.
and so it's the fund to get the funding is a hard fight.
I see.
But so we're lucky in that she gets benefits, and so she gets benefits to pay rent, she gets a benefit for living so that she's got money to live on, and the care that is provided is also provided by the government.
So is she in like a group home or she lives by herself?
Well, initially they did want us to put her in a big group home, but I didn't think that was appropriate for Jess. She likes a more calm.
Mm,
She's actually quite a loud person at times. She can be
yeah.
quite screechy. In fact, her record is that she has closed fire doors because her laughing is so loud it triggers the sensor. So she's actually a loud person, but doesn't like to be in a crowded, busy place. And they did want, initially, they offered us lots of places that were big, but we really fought. So she lived just with one other person. So she gets
Gotcha.
that social interaction. The other person is similar to her in their complex needs. And so they also have one-to-one. So it's quite nice, just sort of, it feels homey. I thought if she's with more people, when she was at college, she was in a bigger setting. And when she's in a bigger setting, Jess just tends to withdraw and she goes very in on herself and doesn't interact with people. So as a long-term thing, I didn't want that for her. I wanted her to be in something that was more homey and felt like a home rather than an institution, so to speak.
So were you able to be like, did you find a specific, like you said, a school and a college, and did you hunt out these facilities or are these just sort of like what's local to you and that's what's available? Or
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with
Yeah.
sort of the
So
healthcare system in the UK.
Yeah, so first school that she went to when she was sort of, the very first school that she went to what we would call our mainstream school, where all just regular kids go. The reason for that was and that's when she was 4. The reason was her brother was there, and also I was in denial. We didn't have a diagnosis, and I thought if she's with other kids, then obviously she'll get better. So that's what we did for the first year. And she went there, couldn't walk independently, was still wearing nappies and was nonverbal and significantly delayed in all aspects of her development. But the school took her with one-to-one support and she did 1 year there. And it was good in that we lived in a small village and all the kids got to know her. And so she was then part of the community. But I quickly realised that actually when they went into the next year, when it became a little bit more, we're going to sit down and do some writing, that wasn't going to be appropriate for her. And so she then went to a special school, which is also state run. And so she stayed there until she was 11. And the options then we had a few options to look at when she left at 11, and they were all state schools, and we managed to get into one that she could stay till she was 19. Once you hit 19 in England, schools or colleges that you can go to are few and far between, and they tend to be private. And the state don't want to pay for that because it's too expensive, but they don't provide a state school for post-19. And so we argued she's still entitled to an education. And so we fought for that position in the college. And it was a big, big fight. We were nearly going to tribunal, but we managed to get her in, and she stayed there until she was 23. So the options, I always said, her brother Sam, his options as he got older, they sort of like went like that. As he got to 18, he could do an apprenticeship, he could go to university, he could get a job. It was like the world was his oyster because options went like this. They were going smaller and smaller and smaller. It was a case of spending a lot of time researching what is available, what did we think would be a good fit for Jess. And we had to, because the state were paying for it a lot of the time, they would say, well, actually, we want you to look at this because we think this might be an option. And they used a phrase which I hated, but they would, and I would say, no, I don't think that's suitable. And they would say, well, we think it's good enough. And that, but who wants to hear that for the child? It's good enough. No, I'm not having good enough. That wasn't what I wanted for Jess. And so we fought, and we got offered this bungalow that she's living in, and it's near open fields and a park and a rugby pitch that, and for whatever reason, she loves watching rugby, and so it's a great spot for her. She goes out on her trike into the park, and so it was good. We could have kept saying, if we didn't think it was right, no, it's not right, it's not right. And at some point they would have said, oh, we don't have anything else to offer you. And then we would have had to find our own sort of space. But it's a case of what were Jessie's needs, and how much did this place meet those needs, and was it suitable for her? The fact that it's a small setting, that there's only one other person there, for us was a big thing. I didn't want lots and lots. You know, when they've got additional needs, they've all got their own little quirks, and it's, can they live alongside each other, and they're compatible to do that. And so we felt that the person she was going to share with was going to work. So it's yeah, I think we managed to get to a place where I do see her most days, because I'm just that type of mum, and I still cook for her, and I take food round for her, and I'm very involved in her life. I go to some of the activities with her because I want people to see that she's come from a good family, that she's loved by her family. The fact that she's in supported living, we're still very, very much involved in her. She can come home whenever and we wanted to. We spend all the holidays with her, and yeah, it works well. And, you know, everything in the house, I managed to make it so that it almost replicates what we have at home. So that her bedroom looks very similar. All her toys are there. She has a keyboard. We made a little sensory room for her. Yeah, she's got it set up great.
I love that you get to be her mom.
Yeah.
You're
Do you
not
know
her
what?
caretaker, you get to meet her where she's at,
Yeah,
and it sounds like an age appropriate level,
yeah.
and, you get to have those, experiences with her.
Yeah, I think the thing that I love, the things, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's really hard, and there are some days that I just think, "Oh, I wish I was the one looking after her and not somebody else, because I'm the only one who can look after her." And sometimes I go and she's got really beautiful long black hair, and sometimes I think, "What have you done with her hair?" But, in the big scheme of things, she's happy, she's well looked after, she's occupied. The fact that her hair is not quite as I want it, I just push that to one side, because actually when I bring her home, I'll do her hair myself. It's not a big but I love the fact that if something happened to me, Jessica's life would just carry on as it is now without doing it, but it would carry on.
Well, and there's probably a lot of moms who've of typical 25-year-old girls who have walked into their daughter's apartment and been like, "Oh, what did you do with your hair?" You
Yeah.
know, so that's not even
No,
something
exactly.
that's necessarily unique to that.
No,
Um,
exactly.
do you get any choice in hiring the people that care for her?
I'm not involved in the interview process, but once they come on into the house and are looking after her, I think because I'm involved a lot and I go down a lot and I see them, I have said and I feel very able to say to the team leader, I'm not 100% sure about this carer and these are the reasons why. And they look into that and there have been people who have been moved on because they've not been appropriate. So I do feel very able to say, "This isn't working, and these are the reasons why." I think Jessica is she's very laid back, she's very easygoing, she's very happy, and I think because she's quite easy in that respect, I think sometimes people get a bit complacent. So I think, in terms of she absolutely loves her food, but she's also on a plan from the speech and language therapist in that her food has got to be moist, it's got to be cut up small. And that is like huge, because if it's not, then there's a choking risk. And so that has got to, so as easy as sort of like, she goes along with things, she's quite sort of complacent, she doesn't fight back really. I think people sometimes can get a little bit not maybe taking as much care as they should. And if I notice that, then I will say something. So I think being there as frequently as I am, I mean, it might be that I'm only there for maybe an hour and a half in an evening, but I just like to see what's going on and that everything is as it should be and that I can speak out if it isn't. So, and we are so lucky in that her core team has not changed since she first started. And
Oh,
that
that's great.
consistency is amazing. And they also they do a shift from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. And then they get paid a flat rate because they're going to sleep in. So they sleep in with Jess and they get her up in the morning. So they're with her for a 24-hour period. So there's not a lot of swapping and changing of staff because I think that's really important for Jess that she sees the same people and it's not lots of different faces. So that's a good thing too.
Now, how is she with sleep? I know sleep with our children is not easy by any means, so
So
go
when
into
she
that a
was
little.
probably about 3, her sleep was awful. She'd maybe just have a couple of hours at night and then just literally
Okay.
stayed awake, and she would not necessarily crying, but she'd be laughing and she'd be just making a lot of noise. She never slept particularly well as a baby. So she started on melatonin at that age. And it was just the normal one. It wasn't the slow release. It used to make her fall asleep so rapidly and then probably an hour to 2 hours later, she'd wake up screaming, and she would scream then for maybe 3 hours, 4 hours, and I would sit in the room with her during that time. She was so hard to settle, so we took her off the melatonin, and she then just continued to really not sleep very well at all. And probably around the age of 7 or 8, we decided we would try melatonin again. And we did, and it didn't seem to affect her in the same way, in that she started sleeping. She'd still sometimes wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and she'd be banging her legs on the wall, laughing, and just like she laughs so much. There was nothing going on in the room. I mean, if it wasn't for being 3 o'clock in the morning, it was quite comical to listen to, but it went on for a long, long time. And of course, it impacts the day after then because she's so
Mhm.
tired. And if Jessica's tired, then she doesn't eat quite the same, she doesn't drink the same. So then it affected her bowels. Sleep was something that we really worked hard to get a really good sleep routine. And, it was bath and pajamas. And, we did exactly the same, like Groundhog Day.
Yeah,
It was
we
really
do the
ground.
same thing, and it's funny that you say the 3 o'clock because Leo, we actually started him on melatonin, and he takes a sleep medicine as well, but 3 o'clock used to be, like, the time for him to wake up,
Yeah,
and that's just funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah,
yeah,
we'd have shift change at 4, so if he woke
yeah,
up at 2 and he was up till 4, I would get up and then she would go to bed.
Yeah.
or, whatever. If he got up after 4, it was my problem, but that's kinda how we split it up.
Yeah.
But and then, you talk about the sleep routine. Well, she's tired. Well, that messes up her eating, her drinking, her regularity. Well, then that messes up the next night's sleep.
Exactly.
And then you've got, sometimes it's a month to get everything
Yeah.
ironed out and get it back to the way you had it. That's also, then you become so, which I think it's good to have a routine for our kids,
Yeah.
but it also locks you in. Like
Completely.
We don't do
yeah,
anything after 7 o'clock.
right.
We make sure
Yeah.
that we're home by 7 so that
Yeah.
our
And
routine stays the same, and, like,
Yeah.
last night, grandma offered to keep Leo overnight, and I'm like, "Ah, he's been sleeping pretty well, knock on wood." I'm hesitant to mess up his routine really at
Yeah.
all.
And if we
I
go
think
anywhere on a weekend, we've got a plan for his nap at some point. It's
Mhm.
just it's a
Yeah.
real double-edged sword for sure.
It is, and I would say that period of time, I got to the point where I'd put Jess down and then I'd have something quickly to eat and then I'd go to bed because I
Mhm.
never quite knew whether we'd have a good night or not a good.
Mhm.
And so, and then I would try then sort of like in the morning, if she was still asleep, to creep around so she could sleep in a little bit. So, but it was always hit and miss really, that the sleep was a really, really big issue. I always seemed to be writing in her school diary, didn't sleep well last night. So that was a big issue. I have to say now, 25 will seem a very long time away for you. I know it will, but she did, as she became a teenager, she did, sort of, she got to maybe 11 or 12. She did start to sleep so much better. She still does take melatonin now, but she can sleep in bed now till 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Does, uh does she have any seizures?
No, she doesn't. So
Mm,
lucky, so lucky. She had
yes.
Yeah.
seizures when she had sepsis and the meningitis, but she hasn't had anything since. And I do think we're very fortunate that we are in that position because I know the seizures can be really difficult to control.
Now on the sepsis and meningitis line, her immune system, how do you feel like she is in
I
that?
think when she was younger, it was poor. I think, but I would say probably when she got past 11 or so, she's actually really healthy. She seems to cope with a lot without showing any signs of distress. I actually think I've seen her today and I actually think she's not that well because she wouldn't eat her lunch. The minute Jessica stops eating, I know that something's bothering her. So it could be she's got a sore throat. So, but I don't know. But she's drinking, just not eating. So we'll just see how that goes. They will give her some pain relief just to make sure that she's okay. And they will call me if there's any issues. It's a big thing to put your trust in that person because whenever she's unwell, I always feel like I revert back to what she was like when she was a child, like a baby, even in
Mhm.
that she can't express, she can't tell you, she wouldn't even hold her head or hold her stomach. It would
Yeah.
just be she was off and not herself. And then we're into the guessing game of what is wrong. And that always just really worries me because if she's sick at night, she wouldn't sit up and be sick. She'd just lie there and be sick. And that always
Yeah.
worries me. The meningitis and the sepsis all were within sort of 6 months of each other. And I do think her immune system was low then, but actually I do think she's quite robust now.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said it seemed to improve when she was around 11 because that would also be when she started in that residential program, and
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe that what am I trying to say? Stressed her out a lot less. She
Yeah.
was a lot more comfortable overall,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that might have boosted her immune system too.
Yeah.
There's an autistic woman who is a professor of animal science actually, but she talks a lot about autism named Temple Grandin,
Yeah,
and
I
she
know.
talks a lot yeah, she
Mm.
talks about that too with nonverbal people and being sick. She says when someone who's nonverbal is having a difficult day or like a meltdown, the first thing you have to do is eliminate a painful medical condition
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
could be having gas, they could be having a
Yeah.
toothache, they could be having heartburn, something like that, and they don't have any way to tell you.
No.
So, yeah, I
Yeah.
just thought that was an interesting thing that not a lot of people think of.
Yeah. And Jess this year had a tooth removed actually. So cleaning teeth is always a big issue for Jess. Anything going in her mouth is an issue. So getting a toothbrush in has always been really, really difficult. We always try, but it's, if we get 20 seconds, 30 seconds, then we're doing well. I don't think I've ever seen her, apart from when she's laughing, open her mouth wide. she just never does it. You know, the toothbrush goes in and she clamps down. But probably 12 months ago now, she was laughing. She was in one of her super giddy moods and she was laughing a lot and opening her mouth really, really wide. And I thought I saw a tooth that looked decayed. And so I was trying to take pictures inside her mouth while she was laughing. And I blew it up. And actually, there was a tooth that looked like it was decayed. And so we got referred to a specialist dentist. And it was going to show, he said he would do an investigation under general anaesthetic. And if it needed removing, he would remove it. I found that was super stressful because she'd never gone in and had a general as an adult, but the staff were absolutely amazing with her. And Jess is so accepting of sort of difficulty. She didn't cry once. She had the anaesthetic and the tooth did need removing, so the tooth was removed. She came out from the anaesthetic and I don't think I've ever seen her look so sad. And she still was really sleepy, but resisting the sleep as much as she possibly could.
Of course.
Yeah. And she recovered really well. And it was interesting in that she now accepts teeth cleaning more readily than she did prior to the tooth. So maybe the tooth bothered her, but just we never knew that. And that is something that, like, how would you know if they've got toothache? It's that, and they're the difficulties, not knowing when there is a problem. There's been little things throughout sort of like her life. She must have only been about 7 or 8. And she didn't walk independently till she was 6, but she was walking. And then all of a sudden this day she'd come home from school and she just wouldn't put her feet down and she wouldn't walk. I didn't know what it was. And she'd had physio at school that day. And when I was getting her ready for bed, the sock had pushed her little toe upwards and then they'd put
Oh,
the boot on. So her toe was like bent and that was hurting her. But how did I know that? You
Yeah.
know, and never would I have thought, oh, maybe it's her toe, you know. So, and then there was another time that her bra strap was twisted and digging into her. And I didn't know that either. And, you know, they're just little things that can cause you a lot of
Mhm.
irritation and make you feel maybe a bit grumpy, but actually you don't know what that is. So
mhm.
become good at just looking at all the possibilities. And I always check her feet now if she's a bit unhappy to make sure her toes are all in the right place, because those are the things that she can't tell you, but they can be causing a lot of problems. So
Now, her walking, how did that progress? And were there any like particular things you found that were really helpful in getting her to walk and be I'm assuming she walks everywhere on her own now, or does she still need a stroller sometimes? Or
no, she can walk on her own, but if she just walks. She walks with quite a wide gait, and she doesn't look where she's going at all. She just looks straight ahead all the time. So if we're out walking, she would always walk with somebody, and they would have to tell her to step if she was going up onto the pavement that we call it. You call it sidewalk, and so she would always need to be told that. And she always does. If it's just a little narrow step, she always does like a gigantic step to go over something. So when she was probably around about 2, she got a standing frame from the physiotherapist and we would strap her in, and it was like strapping like a bag of jelly sort of thing. She was so floppy. And we had these massive big straps of Velcro to go around her. She would stand at the standing frame to try and get some weight bearing down through her hips and her legs. So she did that for a long time. And in fact, her brother said to me, did my standing frame look like that? I said, well, you didn't have a standing frame. And he said, why? He just assumed that that's how everybody learned to stand
Mhm.
and walk. So we went then from the standing frame, when she developed more balance and strength, to she pulled like a frame behind her. The difficulty with that initially was that she was very tactile defensive, so she wouldn't hold on to anything. She wouldn't hold things in her hands. So she loved crinkly paper. So I wrapped crinkly paper around the bars of the frame so that she would hold on to it, and she did. And she would walk in a straight line with this walker behind her, but then she would just walk up against a wall because she couldn't turn it round. So we've eventually got her to turn it round. And she probably had that for a couple of years, and we practiced and practiced and practiced. If I got told to do something and got told to practice, that's what I did. I didn't skip on any of my instructions. We spent time standing up straight against a wall. We would go out a weekend and just walk wherever we were going. And then she probably took her first steps independently when she was 6. So, and I never, because she didn't have a diagnosis, and she does have low muscle tone, she does have hypermobility in her joints. No one would ever say whether or not she would actually walk or not. And so it was like, it felt like a miracle, felt like I'd won the lottery.
I was gonna say, I can't imagine how you felt at that point because I know Leo just started walking about a week before his 3rd birthday, and I still, like, look at him and
Mm.
I'm like, "Holy cow, you're walking."
When she stood up, I just thought, wow, she's tall. Because she's either been sat down or I've just carried her somewhere. And I love the fact that she could choose where she wanted to go in the house
Yep,
rather than me
Mhm.
having to carry her somewhere all the time and sit her down. And that
yeah,
I think the walking, the milestones along the way, I've always thought I really, really wanted to talk. I really wanted to talk. I just wanted to say, please, will you put a plait in my hair, Mum?
yeah,
And I got to then you sort of get to the point where not being pessimistic, you've just got to be realistic. Actually, I don't think she is going to say that. So then I thought, well, if she could just say mum, I'd be happy with that. But I don't think she's going to say that either. Although I am thinking of starting your son's taking your Leucovorin, is he?
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
mhm,
So I can't, don't think I can get that prescribed here, but I can take the 5 mthf, is it?
yep,
So I am thinking of doing that. Yeah, and so there were milestones along the way that I hoped she would reach, but she never actually did. And I think accepting that she wouldn't felt better than always hoping and crashing down when it didn't.
mhm,
That's a hard way to live because there was always birthdays and Christmas. I always thought maybe this time next year she will appreciate that it's her birthday. She will open her presents. She'll blow her candles. She'll appreciate that it's Christmas and Father Christmas is coming. But she never did. Yeah, I used to wrap up her presents and then get her brother to open them. And he was always preoccupied with his own presents at Christmas. So I now just lay her presents out and just put a sheet of paper over. She quite likes
mhm,
flapping the sheet of paper because I've got to. It's in some ways it's sort of torture for me because I know she's not going to do it.
mhm,
So sort of I adapt to a way that she can do it. So she pulls off the sheet of paper and she loves, loves, loves to flap things. That's her thing, flapping.
Mhm.
She flaps. Paper was always a big thing, laminated things, but she loves
mhm,
flapping soft toys as well. Her favourite is a bunny that has got long ears and she likes to flap. And so whenever I buy toys, I always assess how well it flaps to see whether
that's
or not
funny.
it passes. And I think probably thinking about that, one of the difficult things is when Jess was like 4, 5, 6, cute. She's still cute, but she's 25. But when they're a child and they're flapping a little bunny and they're like a young child, then it doesn't look that out of place. What does look out of place is being 25 and flapping a bunny. And that is something that it's sometimes very hard because people do stare. And some days I'm okay with that and I stare back and, if they want to speak to me, then I'm happy to speak. But other days it's upsetting and it just depends on how I'm feeling and whatever. But that that's hard because they don't progress from doing what they did as a child. They still do that when they're an adult. Um, but she loves it, and so that's fine. It makes her happy, so that's fine.
Have you found any ways to, like, come up with more maybe
Age
age appropriate things for her to play with in that way? 'Cause our friend Susan, her son Andrew, he's 25 as well, and he has, I think they're old phone cases that are
Oh,
rubber
right,
banded
yeah,
together, and he plays with those because that's more age appropriate than
yeah,
carrying around
yeah,
a child's toy the whole time. So
yeah. We
obviously,
we
if she
have
wants to carry around a child's toy, sorry, I keep interrupting you. If she wants to carry around a child's toy, that's fine with me. I was just curious if you
yeah,
considered that at all.
we have tried things, but she always reverts me. She'll play with them for a very short period of time and then she just drops them. They don't have the flap, and she also likes to chew them as well. So she has sort of chew when she's not sort of constantly throughout the day, but when she's relaxing and chilling at night, she likes to chew them as well. So Yeah, we've tried various things over the years, but there are very firm favourites that always remain firm favourites that, you know, it's just one of those things.
Yeah, and again, there's, like, neurotypical people that are adults and they like, I don't know, Star Wars and Pokemon and
Yeah.
all kinds of child's things. You just don't think of it that way when they're not holding a toy, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
But it's
exactly.
not as, uh, atypical as people would like to think it is, you know what I
I
mean?
No.
mean, there are people in their 30s that still carry around a baby blanket that, their
Yeah.
tiny corner of that too, so
Yeah, or
just as
buying
comfort.
Labubus or,
Yeah,
things that I don't know.
And, I sort of, like, think that is Jessica's thing, and I don't want to change that because of other people's perception of things. It's
that's
not
right.
a harmful thing that what she's doing, it's what she enjoys, and I just think other people
Why
just
not?
have to put up with it,
Yeah,
it's yeah.
Yeah, I try to have the attitude of and Leo's still young enough now that we don't get too many stares or anything, although it's starting because he's big for his age, so he looks like a 5 or 6-year-old.
Yeah,
But the attitude I consciously try to adopt is if they're going to judge a disabled child like that, then that's gotta be such a miserable way to go through life, and
exactly.
that's its own punishment within itself, you know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I have to say the vast majority of people are lovely.
Mm.
And because Jessica is flapping like this when we go out for a walk, people just think she's waving at them. And so everybody is waving at us when we go out. So they always remember Jess because she's the girl with the bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Were there any particular we talked about it a little bit with the walking, but just in general with any skills, any like real breakthroughs, like therapy methods, devices, anything like that that you found that were really particularly helpful with Jessica?
I think probably early when she was sort of much, much younger, her hands were a real issue in terms of using her hands. And so we worked really, really hard on her holding things. So I would say probably for the first 12 months of her life, she never held anything at all. And I used to buy whatever I bought, I would buy like little squeaky toys so that sort of that she could just hold, sort of grab them like that. I would always buy two of them so that I'd hand her one and hand her the other, hoping she would grab it with that hand, but
Mm.
she would drop that and just take it with that hand. So the break when she took it in both hands. I must have like 50 pictures of it because I was so excited that she'd held something in two hands. And then getting her to then cross the midline and pass things from hand to hand. So I think probably in order to get better hand use, we've just used things that she really loves, which is a lot of crinkly paper for her to use. And in terms of getting her to use her pincer grip, which she's really not very good at. She's quite clumsy, really, with her hands, trying to get her to pick up chocolate buttons, that sort of thing. Her finger feeding has been really very poor, and I think probably she still grabs things a bit more like that rather than like that. So if she's eating maybe a chocolate bar and she's eating it like that, when it gets to the point where there's no more sticking up here, she can't then manipulate her hand. So she then throws it at you, meaning you give it me now because I can't do it. And she can do spoon feeding, but the carer has to load the spoon, but she then will take it to her mouth and then drop it. But she's never got to that point where she can scoop and feed herself. But just putting something in her mouth has been amazing because for years and years and years and years she wouldn't even touch the spoon. So the fact that she does that is amazing, really.
isn't it funny how sometimes getting them to even look at an object is a win?
Yeah.
I was in Leo's classroom the other day and he had a laminated piece of like
Oh, yeah.
paper or something like that, and he was flapping it around and they were like, "Oh my god, he's looking at it. That's a win." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
win."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for a long time, like certain toys just didn't exist to him. Like he could look through them basically
Mhm.
because
Mm.
Other children didn't
yeah.
exist to him until a few
No.
months ago.
Well, to be honest with you, Jess was like that. It was like we weren't there. There were
Mhm.
some days I just thought, "Oh, she feels a bit more with us today." But then there were other days that I just don't even think she recognises that anybody else is in the room with her. Um, if she had a drink, so she drinks out of a, like, a little sports bottle type top. She can't use just a regular cup. And if she drank and there was nothing in it, she'd just drop it on the floor. She wouldn't come and ask for drink or anything.
Yeah.
It was like she wasn't aware that there was anybody else there. And that when she started to become aware, that was just felt amazing. That,
Mhm.
from probably the age of 5, I would sit Jess on the toilet, even though she still wears pads now because she still doesn't tell me when she needs to go. But I would say probably 90% of sort of weeing and pooing is done on the toilet now because we just have such a set routine of taking her to the toilet. And, once she's hit puberty, that was really good that she would go to the toilet for us. So she goes after every meal and in the middle of the afternoon. But it's when she's on the toilet that she really stares at me as I'm sort of sat in front of her. We do a lot of singing and clapping when she's on the toilet because we spend a bit of time there. And she really stares at me, and I love it. So I feel like she's really looking at me.
Yeah. Yep.
Music has always been a massive motivator for Jess.
Mhm.
Mhm.
She has music all the time. She's in the car, and she doesn't like it. She just taps me, which means move it on. We can't listen to the radio because if there's any adverts, then she doesn't like adverts. It's got to be constant music.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but that's always been a biggie. And it's like sensory lights
Mhm.
and things like that.
Yeah.
Wings.
Leo had an assessment for CVI the other day, and she had
Oh yeah.
a red colored flashlight, and she was using that, and he was looking at stuff. Like,
Mm.
she's got a book, and he likes to, like, page through the pages, but he doesn't actually look, but then she's
Yep.
like, "Look at the farmer," and he's like, we're like, "Holy moly," you know what I mean? So
Yeah, and since then, they've started using that in school too. I sent a flashlight in, so that they can use that light then, and then they've also started using, like, a red background on things,
Yeah.
and that has
Yeah.
helped him tremendously.
Oh, that's good.
but, yeah, I mean, you talking about Jess being with you, quote,
Uh-huh.
unquote, that's the thing we've seen help the most from the 5-MTHF and then more with the Leucovorin, like,
Right.
I use the word lucid for lack of a better
Mhm.
word, but just his a bit, because like I said with the kids before, like, when I say that it's like other children don't exist or like other people don't exist, people hear that and they think I'm saying that he ignores them. It's like, no, it's literally like they're not, like, he'll try to walk through them, you know what I mean? Like, he
Mm.
literally does not perceive them in the room with him,
Yeah.
and
No.
that stuff has that perception, he's more perceptive, that perception has been dialed up with those medications.
Like
That's been our experience with it.
That's good. And Jess is definitely more like that. I mean, Jess, if she's at home here with us, then and someone's sat where she wants to sit, what's funny is if she gets hold of their hand as though she's leading them somewhere, she gets them to stand up. He sits down in the seat because that's the chair she wants to sit,
Mhm.
which I just love the fact that she does that because it just shows a little bit of awareness that actually that's the chair I want. So you
yeah.
move
Yeah.
because I'm going to sit there. So,
Yeah, I have a similar experience with Leo where people, like, if you are someone from the outside and you observe him, you might think he's kind of demanding, but the way we look at it is that he's communicating
Communicating.
well.
exactly.
Like, I've had experiences with other special needs kids where it seems like they're very easygoing, but what it actually is they've given up on trying to communicate their needs, and
Mm,
they're just sort of content to be in the background, whereas Leo isn't
Very
always the
much
most
lets them go.
cooperative, but he's trying to get what he wants.
yeah, yeah. Because they're trying to learn how to communicate what they need.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right, absolutely.
Anything that Jessica does that is some form of communication, like sometimes she walks into the bathroom at her house and it's maybe 6:30, and so they try taking her to the toilet, it's not the toilet, so they bring her out, but then she goes back in again, and she's just stood by the bath, and I'd like, maybe she wants her bath now, and they run the bath for her, and that's what she wanted her bath, and that was her way of saying it, she doesn't make a big fuss about it, but I'm stood by my bath and I don't want to go to the toilet. I want my bath. And you've got to you just said, well, it's a bit earlier than normal, but hey ho, we'll go for it. That you're communicating that to
Yeah,
us.
thank you for
Mhm.
telling me.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And so they're very good, the carers, and that they do watch for her, giving them signals and what she wants. And if she's like constantly going to the fridge for a snack, they're perhaps think, she's hungry, let's bring tea forward and we'll eat a little bit earlier than we normally do. And because for so long she wouldn't communicate, that if there's any communication, we have to act on that and let her know
Mhm.
so that she can make her needs known to us.
For sure.
It's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
So you'll have to forgive me because this is going
hmm
on an hour ago, but what did you say your occupation is?
I was an orthoptist for
What?
the National Health Service, so that's eyes.
Gotcha. So, like, what we would call an optometrist or an ophthalmologist?
No, it's I would work with optometrists and ophthalmologists, but it's for people who have defects of their eye muscles,
Oh, interesting.
squints. So Leo maybe have seen an orthoptist, sort of looking at lazy eyes, that sort of thing.
I didn't know those existed. That's a
Mm.
specialist he could probably benefit from, though. But the reason I ask is
But
I
it
was
would be good to go and see an orthoptist because
yes.
you can look to see whether or not or that they would be able to do a vision test on him, even though he can't say words. They might be able to assess in other ways. They could be able to assess whether or not he had a squint, what his binocular vision is like. They would be able to do something. Jess used to see an orthoptist.
Does she have any, like, a CVI or
It
does
has
she have
got
any
CPI.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
go
I
ahead, sorry.
mean, if you look at her in the way that she walks, she uses her foot to sort of test for different floorings, different textures of, well, not gravel going to smooth or grass going to tarmac, different colours of flooring. They really, if she stood on a rug, she'd probably stand there forever until somebody helped her off the rug because she perceives that as a possible step or something. So flooring changing colour is a difficult one for her. She doesn't ever really look directly at anything. Everything's a bit sort of, she feels for things,
Mhm.
feels for her drink. And even if she can't find it, she doesn't then turn to look. She just carries on. Where is it? So she can sometimes come across as though visually she can't see very well, but she can see fine. Her eyes are okay. It's the way she processes it that makes it difficult for her.
Did your so how much do you feel like your specific medical background helped you with understanding her diagnosis and just understanding her in general?
Probably vision wise, it probably helped. And I think understanding the way our National Health Service worked in terms of appointments, I think that helped. But I think not massively, really, if I'm honest. I felt very much in the dark early days when we didn't have a diagnosis. I wanted somebody just to tell me how to help her and how can I bring her on. I saw sort of videos of my son and the way that he developed, and I could see him walking and falling over and saving himself, and lots of things that Jessica just did not do naturally. Everything had to be taught for her, and I just wanted people to tell me what to do and how to help her. So I feel like because I am that type of person. I would research and try and learn and just to implement that and just help her the best that I could, really. So I understood her vision side of things and what I could do to help with that. Um, Almost like treating her when she was younger like a blind child because she really didn't use her vision at all. I'd put bells in balloons and I'd put bells on her wrists to make her aware of her wrists and that sort of thing because she didn't play with her hands in the same way that you would expect a baby to do, or she didn't put things in her mouth, or that sort of thing. So yeah, but I think I just researched a lot because I didn't have any community to help me. Yeah, it felt a little bit like I was blindfolded for a lot of the time.
Well, after you got her diagnosis, did that change things? Were you able to connect with more families that
Yeah,
were able to
yeah,
help you?
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think just sort of seeing other people and that they've gone through the same. I think probably through the journey with Jess, the biggest support for me has always been other parents. Up until the age of 3, we were in a little group that used to have physio and speech therapy together. And sort of became really great friends. I'm still friends with them now. And even though it never changed anything, it didn't make things any better. But I think just sharing all your rubbish stories together and how hard life was just made it feel like you weren't there on your own. And they were all families with children with all sorts of disabilities, some with Downs and some with cerebral palsy. But I think peer support has been the biggest thing that helps people because I think unless you've gone through it, unless you're going through it, it is really, really hard to understand how it feels. I think probably one of the other hard things for me was sort of the natural development for children. You know, with my son, we would sit and watch Teletubbies and sort of baby programs, and then he would sort of change and he wanted to watch other things and he wanted to do some dressing up and then he wanted to start doing things a little bit more independently and he would go out with his friends and your life changes with them as they develop. Whereas really my life's not really changed with Jess. I still do things with her now that I did when she was a baby. And you sort of get left a little bit behind by with your friends because, you know, my friends who have daughters Jessica's age were going out clothes shopping or going out having their hair done or having their nails done or, you know, just sort of more grown up things, whereas Jess still wants to go to the park. And so you feel a little bit stuck in that because you're doing it like forever. Um, and I think sort of seeing people her age learning to drive, getting boyfriends, girlfriends, getting jobs, off to university, I think that is hard. That is hard.
Yeah, you hear people, like, with little kids say, "Oh, I wish they could be this small forever," and that's become I mean, I know people don't mean anything by it, but that's become kind of a pet peeve of mine because it's like,
Yeah.
I don't really think that you do.
No. And people whinging about the kids talking too much or
Hmm.
whatever, and it's just like, oh, what I mean, and it's funny really because Sam, you know, when he was an age where he was going out and he was drinking with his friends and he'd come back in, he'd drank too much, he's lying on the floor drunk. I would probably normally I'd be like, you know, going mad at him, but I was just like, "Oh, wish Jess could do that." Yeah. So I probably was a bit lenient with him really, um, just because they don't ever get to experience that, and it's some moments, like, there was one New Year and Jess wasn't very well. I think she was probably about 18, and Sam and his friends were downstairs before going out, and they were all having a beer, and I was upstairs changing Jessica's nappy, and that really made me really sad because I just thought she should be downstairs having a glass of Prosecco with Sam and his friends, even dating one of his friends, and I'm upstairs changing her nappy, and that's really hard because that doesn't change. And whether sort of you have that perception of when you're pregnant, what your life will be like with that child, and all of a sudden, you know, the world's upside down and it's not that life. But is a good life, and I've learned to accept that life. Would I change it? Yes, I would want her to have the opportunities that Sam had. Yeah, I would. But I love her for what she is, and I get a lot of joy from her, and she brings me a lot of happiness. She feeds my soul, really.
Of course.
Yeah.
On those lines, if you had to give one piece of advice to a new
Mhm.
family coming on, what do you think that would be for yourself?
Kind to yourself because it takes a toll, and I wouldn't accept help because I thought I could do it all myself, that I could manage, and that I wasn't a bad mum, and I could cope with this, but it takes its toll, and it has taken its toll on my mental health. It's taken a toll on relationships, my family, and I would have accepted more help and be kinder to myself. It's hard. It is hard. Um, and also just celebrate every tiny little milestone
Yeah.
because there
Uh
will be lots of them.
For sure. You know, talking about kind of tying that in with what you were just saying about Jess, the other thing too is, and I was talking to someone else on the podcast about this the other day, but especially when you consider that it's a genetic disorder, so it was always there, like fundamentally always there
Mhm.
as long as Jessica has
Yeah,
existed. The life, I'm not saying you shouldn't mourn it or have grief about it because you absolutely should. That's totally normal. But that life that you imagined never existed in the
no,
first
no,
place. It's
no,
not even like you had a kid who, suffered some horrible accident and it changed their life. Those were expectations that you put on them. So I think
Yeah.
it's important to understand that
yeah,
and accept them for who they are. But
absolutely.
what is really interesting to me about you is you're the first guest this is like 30-ish that we've done. You talked about running and you said specifically taking care of your physical and mental health, and we haven't heard any other parents talk about that at all.
Right.
So, can you talk about like just how running has helped that and just sort of the importance of taking care of yourself.
And did you
Well,
make that decision on
yeah.
your own, or did somebody okay.
No, I'd always been into exercise, but I think once I'd had Jess and had Sam as well, there wasn't any set time that I could go out and do exercise. So my sister, who lives in Boston, she is a runner, and she said to me, "Why don't you try running?" I was like, "Absolutely not. I can't do that. Everyone will laugh at me." Anyway, I bought a pair of running shoes and did a bit of a quick walk and a quick run, and just found that it was a time that I could just escape from everything that was going on. I could do all my sorting out in my head and come back and feel refreshed. And I always used to think when I was going out for a run, oh, I don't want to go. But every time I came back, I would say, I am so glad I did that. And I would try and say, remember this feeling next time you say you don't want to go. But I always came back thinking that was just amazing and I feel so much better. And so it helped with my mental health and it helped with my physical health because you need to be strong and fit when you're looking after, Jess couldn't climb stairs until she was probably about 9. So I used to carry her up and down stairs. And, it is physical looking after them. So, and I carried on doing that running and it was brilliant because when I had an hour, I could just put my trainers on and go. And it just helped me clear my head, and I could just be Caroline for an hour rather than running around caring for somebody, and it just gave me a bit of clarity and just, particularly when the times were really bad and we were having to struggle with something or fight with something, then it just made me either just put it out of my head so I wasn't thinking about it for an hour or just run it through my mind, and I can just sort it through. Yeah, it has been really, really useful for me. And I would say definitely keep on looking after yourself. You do neglect yourself, natural. They take so much,
Mm,
and you're tired as well. You're tired.
yeah.
And my life did become a little bit odd in that I would go to bed such a ridiculous early time, but it was so important for me to be able to function the next day.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's what I started doing. And it did mean that for quite a long time, I didn't have a social life and I didn't go out. But I've got 3 other sisters and I'm sort of second eldest and I look the youngest. I'm just saying.
That's funny.
Just I think because I didn't have I had to keep myself well. I had to make sure that I got to bed early and sleep well. And so, yeah, looking after yourself is really, really important.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm
And
super
also
bad about it.
you want to be there for them. So, and I've just gone through the menopause and it was awful. And so I've just thought, right, I want to be there for Jess when she goes through the menopause. So she's 25. So I'm going to have to live for another 25 years yet. So, you know, I've got to work at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably rant here a little bit because I have a lot of thoughts on it, but, like, first of all, running, like you said, is great because literally all you need is a pair of shoes and you can go
Mhm.
out the door. You don't have to go to a gym, you don't have to, any specialized equipment, and, like, a lot of times you can take your Mefty with you, you know what I mean, and
Mhm.
push them
Mhm.
in we have, like, a bike trailer that converts to a running stroller, but I don't think people consider enough, and I'm pretty into fitness, so I think of everything through this lens, but the physical toll that taking care of these children takes on you, and you
Mhm.
need a certain amount of endurance and a certain amount of strength so that you can hold up to that, because if you are so broken down physically from taking care of these kids, that's not the best for you or for your child in the long
Yep.
term. So,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
you need to take care of yourself so that you're around, as you said, for your child. I do a lot more strength sports now. I used to run a lot, and, like, this was before I had kids. I was in college, so I had a lot less to think about in general now, but I can remember runs where I like, literally mile 8 to mile 12. Like, I would look down at my watch and it'd be mile 8, and I'd look down again and it'd be mile 12. My brain
Mhm.
just shut off
Yeah.
for that whole time, and
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot of other things that provide that opportunity for you, and I think a lot of the parents in
Mhm.
this space desperately need something where they can just shut their brain off and go.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I did 3 marathons altogether. When I was doing my long runs, people would say to me, "I saw you running and I waved and you didn't wave back." And I was probably like, because I was zoned out. I
Mhm.
was completely zoned out and just putting one foot in front of the other and just somewhere else in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it also trains a skill of, like, running, obviously, a large amount of it is like physical adaptations, but I also tell people that it just trains you that you're not gonna die when you think you are. You know
No.
what I mean? Like you just figure out how far you can push yourself, and then that skill transfers
Yeah.
to other things in life. So it also builds your tolerance to handle discomfort, when you're
Yeah.
just having a bad day or when your kid's been up for 20 hours straight or whatever.
Yeah. It builds your resilience. Do you know one thing that I always say that Jess has taught me is to enjoy being in the moment,
Mhm.
because that's exactly what she does, because she's not thinking about what's just happened or what's just about to happen. She's thinking about what am I doing right here now? So she loves being in the car and listening to music, and her face in the car with the music on is pure joy.
Mhm.
And that is just something that I think probably many 25-year-olds sort of now in this day and age just do not appreciate. There's always like, am I looking okay? Am I doing this okay? Is somebody liking my pictures? Or, there's always something else that's sort of like occupying their minds. But Jess enjoys what she's doing right there, right then. And that's she's taught me so many things, so many things. And I've also met a huge amount of great, great people because of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of our thing too.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's been the biggest, like, advantage of actually getting a diagnosis is not any, like, actual medical treatment. It's just
The
The
community.
people,
so early having access to the community, and, like, I would say that, I mean, probably half of our friends are people we've met through this stuff now.
right?
So, it's really important to have people who understand exactly what you're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, it is. Yeah, I have those mums who are special needs mums, and we get it. We probably don't even really need to say very much, and we just get it.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly. So, what are your hopes, for Jess's future?
Pretty simple, really, that she remains healthy and she remains happy, and she's cared for by people who love her.
That's almost universal, but
Mm.
that's about everybody's hopes
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And if any changes, what would you like to see in terms of awareness or support research for MCHS? Are your thoughts there?
No, I think probably an earlier diagnosis, but I think that happens because there's so many young people now in the group that have got an early diagnosis. Not getting a diagnosis till she was 18 was pretty torturous, really. And some form of treatment, even if it just meant it just, you know, I think if they could speak or say some words, I think that would be a big thing. Being non-verbal. I mean, I've had a lot of medical appointments, I don't mean with specialists, but maybe with a GP or general practitioners. And I'll say she's non-verbal, and they'll say, "So what does she say?" "Hmm, she's non-verbal. Nothing." "No, but what does she say?" So it's like, you're really worrying me now because you're a medical professional and you're not understanding what I'm saying. Yeah, a better understanding of the complexity of our children, I think, because they are very complex, and their needs and the support that they need is very complex, and they don't fit necessarily into just the sort of regular sort of like, oh, they need a bit of help type of thing. They need a lot of understanding, and being non-verbal as well adds to that sort of difficulty. I think I would love to think that there would be some sort of treatment in the future. I would love to think that it would be available to Jess, and it
Right.
could make a difference. But if it could for the future, I think that would just be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any little bit of anything is
Exactly. I
everything.
think just if Jess just had a little bit more awareness of her surroundings, maybe just a little bit more understanding. It is difficult sometimes to do different and new things with her because she doesn't understand what's happening, and she
Right.
gets really quite distressed by it because she doesn't understand what's happening. Yeah, so just being able to sort of like have a better understanding of the world. She
Mhm.
understands the world because it's so routine what we do, and she knows when she does this. Like, if she goes anywhere that is new to her, she will not drink anything. It could be 100 degrees outside, and she might not have drank for 5 hours, but she would still not drink. As soon as we got her into a familiar place or in the car, she'd probably drink 3 bottles or something. But so, it's something like that, to think that her basic need of drinking, just because she feels uncomfortable and unsure of herself, affects her basic need for drink is
Mm.
huge.
Yeah.
So if she could understand that it's okay to drink here, but for her, she's not comfortable and she will not do it. Absolutely refuses.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners?
And so I think we've said a lot, haven't we?
We have. It's been an hour and a half of going back and forth here. Well, thank you to our guests for listening. We're going to wrap up here.
Thank you so much for your time, Caroline.
You're
As
welcome.
always, you can find us on Facebook at the MEF2C cast. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, want to be a guest, you can email us at mef2cast@gmail.com or through the contact box on our website, which is mef2cast.com. You can check out the Shopify link in the description if you'd like to support the show and buy a t-shirt. And thank you everybody for listening.